Content marketing, what is it? How do you plan for it? And how do you do it? Well, my guest today is going to talk to you all about content marketing. I think it's a great episode and I can't wait for you to hear it. Hey, welcome to the Small Business Made Simple podcast, brought to you by socialmediaandmarketing.com.au. Being in business is never easy, but it can be simple, or at least simpler. Join me, your host Jen Donovan, every week where we focus on marketing, social media, and working towards simplifying your business. You with me? Let's do this.
Gonna dream it big, 'cause someone out there listening. Everyone's got a voice to give, and it's time I heard you whistling, 'cause there's no point at all, in dreaming small.
Why, hey there. Welcome to episode 115 of the Small Business Made Simple podcast. Thank you, as always, for lending me your ears today. I know there are lots of other podcasts out there, but I really do appreciate you making me one of your choices. I am, of course, the host, Jen. If we haven't met before, then super welcome to you and welcome back if we have met before. I am, of course, a marketing thought leader, a digital strategist, and a coach for small businesses. And pretty much, I just love small business and small business owners. I have one goal for my business, and that is to make you make marketing a priority for your business, because I know if you want to grow and if you want to become more profitable in your business, and if you want to surpass any of your competitors, marketing is the key to doing all of that. Basically, it's that simple. It's not easy, but it is simple for sure. Before we get into this week's episode, though, I just wanted to quickly let you know about a second podcast I launched just last week. In case you can't get enough of my dulcet tones, there's another whole podcast for you to listen to. It's called Stories from the Bush, and it's interviews of amazing rural small business owners from my other business, Spend With Us, Buy From a Bush business. If you're not familiar with Spend With Us, Buy From a Bush business, it's my side hustle and basically Australia's premier online marketing place for rural and regional businesses. Think Amazon, but for rural and regional businesses. That's our big, hairy, audacious goal. Of course, attached to that is my very well serviced Facebook group called Buy From a Bush Business, which has 310 members. I think we just clicked over 310 just last week. Anyway, my podcast is basically telling them their stories of business owners from rural and regional Australia. There's 10 of them. I've launched them all at once, so you can listen to one or you can listen to them all. Of course, you can find Stories from the Bush in any of the podcast apps, or you can go to our website, which is spendwithus.com.au, and click on the podcast button. Okay, but back to this podcast. And this week I have a really special guest. Her name is Mel Daniels, and she's from Mel D Business Services. And she's chatting to me and you all about content marketing. Content marketing is Mel's jam. And Mel knows that content marketing is one of the biggest roadblocks that you possibly have for getting your strategy right for your marketing. And if you don't quite know or understand what content marketing is, well, Mel's going to explain that to you in a really simple way. I know that you're going to understand, and you'll be able to start thinking about your marketing a little bit differently. Having your content marketing strategy done, dusted, and implemented is kind of like someone telling you what to cook every night. And if you are like me and you stand in the supermarket just glazing at food, thinking, I wish someone would just tell me what they want to eat and then I could just cook it because I'm sick to death of trying to think what to cook, well, you'll understand the analogy. If you just had a plan, if you had a content marketing strategy done, then you would know what to talk about every single week or every single day or every single month. So that's kind of what we're talking about today. Anyway, content marketing just makes your life simple. It makes business simple. And I'm all about making things simple, which is kind of the name of the podcast. But, I know things aren't easy. Content marketing isn't necessarily easy, but it's definitely simple, or at least simpler than what you think it is. So anyway, that's enough from me. Let's hear from Mel all about content marketing. Mel, I'm really excited to have you on the podcast because we're going to talk about content and content creating, which I think, given that we're heading into a new year, or we are really in a new year, I think it's a really great subject to chat about. But for my audience who perhaps doesn't know as much about Mel as I do, can you let us know a little bit about yourself and about your business?
Sure thing, Jen, and thank you so much for having me today. I'm so excited to be able to talk to all of your listeners about all things content. So for those of your listeners who don't know me, my name is Mel Daniels. I'm a content strategist and coach, and I help women in business really use content in a strategic and purposeful way in order to connect, nurture, and convert their ideal clients. So that's what I do now. I actually started 4 years ago as a virtual assistant, and yeah, my journey has progressed from there.
Yeah, beautiful. I remember when I first started out in marketing. So this isn't obviously for my listeners already know that I didn't start my life in marketing, but I used to hear the term content marketing all the time, and I actually didn't know what it meant. So in case there's any listeners out there who are like I used to be, what is content when you talk about content? What are you actually talking about?
Yeah, content can actually just include a whole wide range of things. It can contain digital content as well as physical content. So physical are things like your brochures or even your business cards that you hand out to people. I focus more on the digital side of things. So when we talk about digital content and digital content marketing, we're talking about those things like email marketing, blogs, podcasts, videos, social media, all of those things, the kind of like the digital ecosystem that makes up content.
Yeah, good. Okay, perfect. So at least when we talk about content for the rest of the podcast, people will have some idea of what we are really talking about here. So, how important is content to small business owners? Then let's start with that question.
Wow. And that is such a huge question too, Jen. It is so important. It is so important. And I know that there's so many different experts out there, and they'll all say that their specialty is really important to business. But content really has two main purposes. And the first one is to showcase who you are. So to really show people your brand, your personality, your values in particular. So that's a really huge reason to be doing content for your small business. But the second reason, or the second purpose that content has, is to actually help your ideal client through their client journey with you. So going from not knowing anything about you all the way through to becoming a raving fan. And the way that we do that is through our content, delivering the right content at the right time to the right people.
The magic formula of business success, right content to the right people at the right time. Yeah, if we could all do that, we would be certainly gazillionaires, I think, for sure.
We would be. Yes. And it is such a difficult thing to get that perfect mix, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is. And I think it's almost the holy grail that we're all aiming for, but I don't actually think that we should necessarily be thinking that that's the only way that we can write content, or that we should be writing content, because marketing is test and measure. So we've really got to put some content out there and see what our audience interacts with as well.
Yes, absolutely. And I've loved that you've said that it's all about test and measure, because it really is. It's about, tweaking the things that you're putting out there. If something is not working, why isn't it working? Let's make a little bit of a change to that piece of content. Or if it's not resonating, perhaps we're not doing the right thing at the right time. So it's all about looking at what's working well and taking that and amplifying it where we can.
Yeah. I heard a really cool quote the other day. Actually, I was interviewed for Smart Company's online blog, and there was 16 of us, and one of the other 16 people was talking about content marketing, and I thought what they said was really interesting. Basically, he said, content is no longer king, it's basically the whole royal family, but he talked about targeted content as opposed to just content. Do you see a difference, or can you explain to the audience maybe what the difference between targeted content is and perhaps content itself?
Yeah, okay. So targeted content is obviously something that is made specifically for someone. And, the number one rule about being in business is to know your niche and know your ideal client. And so that's what targeted content is really all about. It's knowing your ideal client, understanding what they're thinking, they're feeling, they're doing at each stage of that client journey that you have with them, and then actually producing the content that gets them through to that next stage with you. So, from connection to then subscribing to your email list, you're nurturing them, and then they convert and onboarding them. So it's really being quite specific about the types of content that you deliver to them in those stages.
Yeah, I love that because that was really simple, Mel, because sometimes I think we can read these things and we can make them bigger than Ben Hur. But, your explanation of, what targeted content is was really, yeah, I think that was really simple and easy to understand. So that's great. Where does content sit in a sales funnel?
Okay, so a traditional sales funnel is basically the shape of a funnel. So it's, you try and get as many people in as possible. You squish them into your funnel, you push them down, and hopefully by the end, the skinny bit at the end, someone's going to actually purchase. I love to think about sales funnels in a more connected way though, Jen. I love to think of it as a client journey. So it's all about those touch points that you have, those opportunities that you have with each and every single person that you come across. Every person has some sort of effect from your content, whether they scroll on by, whether they like it, whether they interact with it, whether they consume it. Every single person has the potential to actually interact with your content. So I really feel as though a sales funnel sometimes can be a little bit pushy thinking. And so if we think about it in terms of a client journey instead, so like I said before, the connect, subscribe, nurture, convert, and onboard, if we think about content as the way that we can get them through that client journey with us, then I think it's a different way of looking at content and the sales funnel.
Yeah, definitely. So basically, content is all the way through a sales funnel. And I often talk about sales funnels of flipping them upside down. So the skinny bits at the top, and you're really
Yes.
just getting qualified leads through that top there. You're not trying to get as many people in the funnel as you possibly can. Your content is, trying to attract the best people. So the people that fall out the other end are, more likely to buy. So
Yep.
yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. We've got to rethink the whole sales funnel, but content is a huge part of that sales funnel, no matter which way you look at it.
Absolutely. And so if you're thinking about those different parts of the sales funnel or the different parts of the client journey and thinking about what types of content really work in those particular areas. So just to pull out one, for example, if you've got someone subscribed to your email list and you're really looking at nurturing them, and the best way to nurture them is to have that email series, that automated email series that gives them added value, that lets them know more about you, that sends them to other bits of content that you've already got. So whether that's a podcast episode, a video, a Facebook Live that you've done, whatever it is, in that particular phase of the client journey, using email marketing is the way to go.
Yeah, beautiful. Which leads me into the next question really seamlessly. What's the goal of content marketing? We're creating all this content. Like, what should a small business owner be thinking? I guess I sort of talk a lot about, start with the end in mind. So what do you see is the end goal of content marketing?
Yeah, so I think that content marketing has two main goals. And the first one is to really showcase who you are. So people can get to know, like, and trust you. I know that everyone knows that terminology, but it's things like understanding what you stand for, understanding what you don't stand for as well, understanding the energy of a person as well, and showcasing your brand and your personality. So that's really one main goal of content. But the other is, I'm going to go back to the client journey, Jen, is to get them from not knowing anything about you all the way to becoming those raving fans. So it's about moving them along that journey. It's about connecting with them. It's about nurturing them. It's about converting them as well. So, at the end of the day, we want the sales. we want to stay in business. So content can actually help you do that. So that's probably the two main goals of what content marketing is all about and why it's so important for all the small business owners out there.
Yeah, beautiful. So for anyone listening, where do they start? how do they start producing content? Do you have one or two tips or hacks to help someone who perhaps is having trouble getting content for either their socials or their marketing?
Yeah. So I think the best place to probably start is a brain dump. Like, I really encourage all of my clients to really start to think about all the possible things that you could possibly talk about and just put them down on paper, because there's a lot of stuff. We know a lot of stuff, and I don't think that we realize how amazing we all actually are and how much stuff that we've got up here in our head that our ideal client really needs to know. So getting that all down on paper in terms of, I call them source themes, Jen. So we're talking about things like what you actually do, how you deliver it, the purpose, like why you're actually doing it, who your ideal client is, and the type of transformation that you provide to them, or the type of end product or service that you actually provide to them. So once you get all of those ideas out of your head and onto paper, then you can kind of really start to sift through them and just pick out one kind of topic and put it in a monthly calendar. And that can be your topic that you talk about for January. That is honestly the simplest and easiest way to start with your content, is choosing a theme for each month and then building your content around that theme.
Yeah, I agree. And I also love the brain dump. I think everyone who does a brain dump is really quite impressed about how much they know or how much they didn't know that they knew. Just when you let the pen just keep writing and writing and writing, I
Yes.
think people really do. It's like, oh, wow, I have a lot of content inside my head. And also perhaps forgetting the small things. I often, get pulled up sometimes, something that I do every day and that I've known for ages. I find that some people don't know. And that's a really good reminder of, don't overthink what you know, and really knowing that ideal client, like you say.
Yeah, absolutely, Jen. Absolutely.
Yeah, I really love this conversation, Mel, because I think it comes back to some of the real baseline marketing that we need to know. What do you want to be famous for? And who is your ideal client? And I think sometimes small business owners get wrapped up in, Instagram and Instagram stories and Facebook and lives and all of this. Sometimes they're bright, shiny objects. At the moment, it's Clubhouse, like, oh my God, the new social media platform that everybody has FOMO about. But at the end of the day, we've got to come back to those basics of who's your ideal client and what do you want to be famous for?
Yes, absolutely. And in addition to that, making sure that that actually aligns with the time, the energy, and the resources that you have available. Because, like you said, we can do all the things, right? There are so many social media platforms. We could write blogs, we could do podcasts, we could do videos, we could do all the things. But we shouldn't do all the things, because if we do, then we're just going to end up in that spot of burnout, and that's not going to help anyone.
No, that's right. And burnout is a real thing. And I think we have seen that and know that so much more heading into 2021, certainly for me, than what I've ever seen before in,
Yeah.
within my business friends and colleagues, for sure.
Yeah.
Mel, is there anything around content or content marketing or that we kind of haven't touched on before we finish up? Have you got any tips or tricks that we haven't mentioned?
I would love to mention the power of reimagination, Jen. So, reimagination is basically another word for repurposing or reusing your content. I love to use the word reimagine because it just conjures up all the possibilities and, all the things that is actually possible. You can dream big with reimagining. So when you reimagine your content, when we're talking about it in terms of our content, we're thinking about how we can take what we've got and actually turn it into lots of other little bits and pieces. So I do have a few examples or a few
Yeah,
tips and
great.
tricks
Yeah.
that we can talk about in terms of reimagination. So the first place to start with reimagination is make sure that you have one piece of main content or focused content. So whether that is your blog, your podcast, or some sort of videos. So whether that's YouTube, Facebook Lives, Instagram Lives, whatever is your thing. So having that one main piece of content that you can then strip out lots of different bits and pieces. And the easiest things that you can take out of your one piece of focused content, firstly, is quotes from yourself. I know this, like you can make it into a pretty graphic, and I will guarantee there is at least 3 or 4 sentences in every piece of content that you write that are pearlers, that are absolute like great one-liners that you can pull out and create as an extra piece of content, and then use that in the various platforms that you're playing on. The second is pulling out tips. Okay, so pieces of wisdom from the main piece of focus content that you've got. And the way that you can do that is by just taking the bullet points or the subheadings in what you've written or spoken about, and then creating a piece of content around that. So for me, I actually write a blog. So each of my subheadings and the paragraph underneath have become a separate piece of social media content that I actually use word for word. So I don't even really change it. I just pull it straight out of my blog and use that as a piece of content. Obviously, I can use it on various different platforms in various different ways. I can use it on Facebook, in my Facebook group, in my Facebook page, Instagram, stories. I can use it all over the place. And that's probably another thing. Like, it doesn't matter if you use it all over the place, because not everyone is going to see everything, are they? It
No,
never
no.
happens, Jen.
And I think we're kind of fooling ourselves if we think we're that popular as well.
So true. So true. I'm definitely not that popular. So,
Neither.
so yeah, doing it like actually reimagining it on different platforms is totally fine as well. So that's 2 main ways that you can take your one piece of meaty, chunky content and break it into micro pieces of content through reimagination.
Yeah, beautiful. So you work mainly with service-based businesses, Mel. What do you see that most of your clients or the people you hang around sort of choose out of podcast, blog, and videoing as that almost that hero piece of content that they take that the smaller pieces?
Yeah, so I would say that blog is probably the most popular, only because it's the easiest to get started with, if that's where your strengths and your love lies with words. I would say that podcasts are becoming so much more popular in terms of that one piece of focused content. But at the moment, it's probably still blogs, because it's so easy to get started. And when you have the right structure, it's so easy to kind of just pull together a 500-word blog to be able to put on your website and then reuse.
Yeah, I think that's just a great little tip you gave just then, like 500 words. Like, we're not talking War and Peace. We're not talking $2,000, $1,000 words, 3,000 word blog posts. We are talking, because again, we go back to our ideal client. Does your ideal client have time to read a 3,000 word essay, or do they just want a short sheet little piece that is going to give them some great tips and tricks to go away and start implementing?
Yeah, exactly. And also, like, what is your ideal client doing? Do they have time to sit down and read things? Do they have time to watch a video? Or can they multitask listening to a podcast?
I think a lot of people can and do, which is,
yes.
I guess, why that particular medium is continuing to grow more and more, for sure.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, beautiful. Mel, this has been such an interesting conversation. I love content. I think anyone who follows me knows that I love content. But even, some days I get stuck for content. It's not something that always flows easily. We all have our times where we have our writer's block or our podcaster's block or something like that. I would probably recommend that people go and do a word dump and, just let the pen do the writing. But what would you recommend if someone is really just stuck?
So once again, I think that we need to go back to the planning side of things. So when you have an idea of what you're going to talk about for the month, for the year, whatever it may be, it's far more easier to then sit down and write about those things. I know this sounds a little bit strange, but sometimes there's actually freedom in structure. So if you know what topics you're actually going to talk about, then some people write better or perform better when they're in the flow. Okay, so when they're in that creative space where everything's just coming out nicely. But the problem is they get into that state, and yet they don't know what to actually write about. So if they have that plan in place already, that's based around, maybe marketing, your marketing plan, what's going on, what are you launching, what are you promoting this particular month, if you have that already planned, then the actual creating of the content becomes so much more easier.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like someone telling you what they would like for dinner is so much easier than standing at the supermarket trying to figure out what to cook for dinner. So if you've got a plan that says this month you're talking about this, it's so much easier to come up with the content.
Oh my goodness, I love that analogy so much, Jen. I'm going to use that.
Perfect. It's yours. Mel, great conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time to come and chat to my audience today. How can they get in contact with you?
Yes, so you can find me on my favorite social platforms on Facebook and Instagram. My handle is at Meld Business, or you can find me via my website, which is meldbusinessservices.com.au.
Beautiful. And I will have those links in the show notes, of course. Mel, thank you again so much for chatting with us today, and look forward to seeing all your great content for the next 12 months.
Thank you so much for having me, Jen. It's been a real pleasure to be here. And thank you also for facilitating such a beautiful Facebook group. I love your Facebook group so much.
Yeah, there's a great crew in there for sure. Thank you. I really hope you enjoyed that episode. I love chatting to other marketers about marketing, and I love the conversation around content marketing. Perhaps if content marketing is something that you need to get your head around, then get in touch. You know, I've got discovery calls that you can book into, a 30-minute chat with me to see how I might be able to help you. If you would like to book in one of those discovery calls, then you can go to my calendar, which you can find at calendly.com/Jen with 2 N's -SMM discovery. Or you know what? You can come to the show notes at socialmediaandmarketing.com.au/115 to find that link, or just send me a DM on Instagram and I will send the link directly to you. But if it's something you want to get your head around, or something you think, you know what? Yes, if I could just know what to post, I would be so much better at my marketing, then get in touch. Let's get this done for you. But of course, that's all for episode 115. I will be back for 116 next Thursday, and I really look forward to chatting with you then. I hope you have a fabulous week, whoever or whatever it might bring you. And of course, if you're enjoying listening to this podcast, I'm talking a little bit fast, aren't I? If you're enjoying listening to this podcast, I would really love you to hit that subscribe button or follow button, as it so is now on Apple Podcasts, and maybe even share this episode with another superstar business owner doing that daily grind who would really love some help with content marketing as well. And if you have time for a rating and a review, hand on heart, would seriously appreciate you doing that for me as well. But otherwise, I'll see you next week. But remember, my small business peeps, as my opening song says, there is no point in dreaming small.
Tell it like you feel it, say it proud, be true, and let us see you for the star that you are. No point in dreaming small.